There was a door in your life that you were sure was meant for you. You remember how it looked. Maybe it was a relationship, maybe it was a job, maybe it was a move, a dream, an opportunity that felt like the missing piece. You prayed. You imagined your life on the other side of it. You told yourself, if this opens, everything will finally make sense. You knocked. You waited. You did everything you knew how to do. And then it stayed closed, not half open, not maybe later, closed. Calls that never came back, messages that were left unread, interviews that went nowhere, a person who slowly stopped trying, plans that fell apart for reasons you still don't fully understand. From your side, it felt like rejection. From heaven's side, it was protection. You stood there in front of that door with your hands on the handle, pulling, pushing, praying, while silence answered you. You thought, what did I do wrong? Why am I never chosen? Why do things seem to work for everyone else, and I'm the one left standing outside? You weren't just disappointed, you were wounded, because that door represented more than a situation. It represented your sense of worth. If this opens, maybe I matter. If this opens, maybe I'm not behind. If this opens, maybe I'm not as invisible as I feel. So when it didn't, the pain went deep. You watched others walk through their doors. Engagements, promotions, opened doors to places you dreamed of with people you wished would notice you. You clapped, you smiled, you said, I'm happy for you. But inside, you whispered, God, did you forget me? You did not see what heaven saw. You only saw the pretty front of that door. You saw the highlight reel. You saw the version of that future that your mind carefully edited and airbrushed. Heaven saw the back of the door. The part you couldn't see yet. The version of that relationship after the early excitement faded. The version of that job after the honeymoon period ended. The version of that dream once you realized the cost it demanded from your soul. You saw, this could change my life. Heaven saw, this could slowly damage your heart. You saw opportunity. Heaven saw exposure. You saw promotion. Heaven saw pressure. You were never meant to carry that way. You begged, Lord, open this. Please, just this one, just this once. And while you cried, heaven whispered, if I open this, you will think I am blessing you. But on the other side of this door is a storm you cannot yet see. I will not decorate your destruction and call it destiny. So the answer was no. No, not this one. No, not with them. No, not here. No, not that way. You heard silence. But in that silence, heaven was saying, I am saving you from what you are asking me to bless. You did not know about the tears you would have cried in that relationship. The nights you would have stayed awake, wondering why the person who once adored you now treated you like a burden. The compromises you would have made to keep something that was never safe for you. You did not know about the exhaustion you would have carried in that job, the slow erosion of your peace, the way your values would have bent, one small decision at a time, until you wouldn't recognize who you had become. You did not know about the spiritual climate of that place, the heaviness that lived there, the distractions that would have numbed your soul little by little until your fire for God felt like a distant memory. You only knew what you wanted. He knew what you needed. And because he loves you, he chose to disappoint you for a moment rather than lose you for a lifetime. So the door stayed closed. You tried again. You knocked harder. You tried to be better, more charming, more competent, more impressive. You blamed yourself for everything you could think of, hoping that if you fixed enough of you, the lock would suddenly turn. It didn't. You thought, maybe I'm not praying correctly. Maybe I don't have enough faith. Maybe God is punishing me. But faith is not measured by how many doors you can force open. Faith is also measured by your ability to step back when God keeps one shut. You didn't know that in another room, heaven was already preparing a different door. One that didn't require you to shrink. One that didn't require you to betray your convictions to keep it. One that didn't demand you constantly prove your worth to stay inside. There is a kind of love that gives you what you ask for, even if it hurts you. God's love is not like that. He will listen to your cries. He will hold your tears. He will feel the ache of your disappointment, but he will not open what he knows will break you. And as you stand there staring at the door that never opened, he is not mocking you. He is not rolling his eyes saying, "Get over it." He is standing beside you, gently turning your shoulders just a little so your eyes can start to adjust to the fact that this hallway is not the end. There is more. In this story, we are going to walk back through the doors that never opened, the no that felt cruel, the not now that looked like abandonment, the opportunities that passed you by, the relationships that never became what you prayed for. We will not look at them as proof that you are forgotten. We will look at them as signs, evidence that someone on the other side of time has been guarding your future with a wisdom you did not have yet. You called it a closed door. Heaven called it a rescue route. And one day, when you see what he saw, you will thank him for every handle that refused to turn when you were so sure that this was the door that would save your life, never realizing that the way he truly saved your life was by keeping it closed. There was a season when you wore that closed door like a label. You didn't just say, "The door didn't open." You started saying, "Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm not lovable. Maybe I'm not the kind of person God trusts with good things." The no felt personal. It attached itself to your identity. It followed you into other areas of your life. You hesitated to dream again because in your mind, you already knew the ending. "I'll knock. Nothing will happen. I'll stand outside again." You watched others walk straight into what you were begging for. They were chosen for the role. They were pursued in relationships. They were invited into rooms you only saw from a distance. You didn't see them as enemies. But you quietly wondered, what do they have that I don't? What did God see in them that he didn't see in me? From your side, their open doors felt like a mirror reflecting your lack. From heaven's side, their path had nothing to do with your worth. Doors are about assignment, not value. Two people can stand in front of the same door. One will walk through and the other will not. Not because one is loved and the other is ignored, but because their stories are not the same. God is not a manager giving out prizes. He is a father writing specific journeys. There were places you wanted to go that would have looked good on your story, but would have pulled you away from his. You didn't see that. You only saw timing. You only saw status. You only saw what others could see from the outside. So when the answer was no, you interpreted it as, "You're behind. You're disqualified. You missed your moment." But heaven's voice over that moment sounded nothing like that. It sounded more like, "Not here, not like this. I'm not rejecting you, I'm redirecting you. I am not done writing." You have to understand something about God's no. It is never careless. It is never random. It is never a reaction of impatience. His no is just as intentional as his yes. He knows what you don't know. He knows the weight behind that opportunity. He knows the spiritual cost of that relationship. He knows the internal compromises that doorway would slowly demand. While you saw the chance of a lifetime, he saw a slow leak in your soul. So he intervened, not with a long explanation, not with a heavenly slideshow showing you every possible outcome, just with a closed door. You prayed and felt nothing move. You pushed and nothing shifted. You tried to claim it by faith, but faith does not override God's protection. There were nights when you lay in bed and told him, "You could have opened it if you wanted to. You are powerful enough. You are strong enough. If it stayed closed, it must mean you didn't want to bless me." But power is not the issue. Love is. If a parent refuses to let a child walk into traffic, it is not because they lack power to move the cars. It is because they love the child too much to let them test their strength that way. In the same way, God is strong enough to pull you through any door. He is strong enough to sustain you anywhere. But strength is not the only question. The question is that place aligned with who he is forming you to become? And if the answer is no, then his love will choose to disappoint your desire rather than endorse a version of you that lives far from his heart. You have cried over closed doors. You have stood outside, confused, with your hand still resting on the handle long after it was clear that it would not open. And heaven has watched you with compassion, not annoyance. He has whispered over you in those moments, "If you knew what I knew, you would not be begging me to change this. If you could see the whole picture, you would not call this cruelty. You would lift your hands in worship for a no that saved your life." But right now, you don't see the whole picture. You only see the hallway. You only feel the ache. So he stays with you there. He doesn't rush you past your disappointment. He doesn't say, "Stop crying, you should be grateful." He lets you grieve what you thought your life would look like. And even in your grief, he is working. He is untangling your identity from that door, teaching you that you are more than what opens and what doesn't, more than who chooses you or who doesn't, more than promotions, invitations, and titles. He is gently separating the two things you had glued together in your heart. If I get this, I have worth. If I don't, I am nothing. The closed door remains closed. But something else begins to open, your understanding. You start to see that if your value was truly tied to that door, God would have been cruel to keep it shut. He is not cruel. He is careful. Careful with your calling, careful with your future, careful with your heart. And sometimes that care looks like this, a firm, unshakable no in the very place where you were so sure he would finally say yes. There was a time when you almost broke yourself trying to open a door God had already closed. You remember how hard you pushed, how many times you went back, how many conversations you rehearsed in your head, thinking, "If I say it like this, maybe it will work. If I try one more time, maybe this time they will choose me. Maybe this time the answer will be different." You were not lazy. You were not indifferent. You gave everything you had to that door. You changed pieces of yourself to fit. You swallowed your own needs to keep the peace. You silenced your discomfort and called it maturity. You sacrificed your rest, your boundaries, your peace, just to stay close to something that refused to open the way you hoped. From your side, it looked like perseverance. From heaven's side, it was you hurting yourself against a lock he himself had put there. There was that relationship. You felt it slipping. You saw the distance forming. You sensed the lack of reciprocity long before anything exploded. Still, you tried. You wrote long messages explaining your heart. You apologized for things that weren't yours alone to carry. You made yourself smaller so they could feel bigger. You adjusted your personality, your schedule, your joy. And every time the connection loosened, you tried to tie it tighter with your own hands. But love that has to be constantly forced is rarely safe for your soul. From heaven's perspective, this was not about you losing love. It was about you thinking that love meant begging to stay in a place that wasn't built for your healing. So God began to let reality speak louder. You started to notice the one-sidedness, the broken promises, the pattern of almost change that always slipped back into the same hurtful cycle. Your body reacted before your mind did. Tension around them, exhaustion after being with them, that familiar knot of uneasiness that you kept rebuking instead of respecting. You kept saying, "I just need to pray more. I just need to fight harder for this. I just need to prove that I can hold on." Heaven kept saying, "You are not called to prove you can endure being unloved. You are called to recognize when a door is not your home." There was also that job, that dream position. You saw the door close once and thought, "Maybe I just need to improve." You tried again, rewrote the resume, upgraded your skills, pushed yourself like someone running toward a finish line. You told yourself, "If I can just get in, everything will make sense. My worth, my future, my stability, all of it is hiding behind this door." So when the door stayed shut, it felt like your entire foundation shook. You didn't see the long nights you would have had there. You didn't see the compromises you would have been pressured to make. You didn't see how that environment would have slowly disconnected you from who you really are. You only saw an income. He saw the outcome. So he allowed what felt like repeated failure to save you from a success that would have silently killed your spirit. You don't often think of success as dangerous. but heaven does. Any success that pulls you away from God is just a slower form of loss. There were moments when you felt God could have made it work. He could have softened their heart. He could have changed the boss. He could have moved the system in your favor. He could have opened the door with one whisper. You were right. He could have, but he didn't. Not because you were unworthy, not because you didn't pray enough, not because he is indifferent to your dreams. He didn't, because victory on the wrong battlefield is still defeat. You may win the position and lose yourself. You may keep the relationship and lose your peace. You may get the door open and realize too late that what lives behind it does not match who God made you to be. So sometimes, as an act of mercy, he lets your efforts fail. He lets your strategies crumble. He lets the connection break, even though you were willing to bleed to keep it intact, and you stand there devastated, feeling like everything you gave was wasted. But what if what you really lost was the illusion that you could save yourself by forcing doors open? Because as long as you believe you can make anything work, if you just try hard enough, you will keep injuring your soul against locks that are not meant to move. God's no is not meant to humiliate you. It is meant to heal you from the belief that your worth depends on your ability to earn every yes. You have stood in front of some doors for far too long, exhausted, dehydrated, begging metal and wood to love you back. Heaven has watched you, not with frustration, but with deep tenderness, whispering, "You were never meant to live your life begging to be chosen. You were already chosen before you ever stood in front of this door." What if the courage you need now is not the courage to keep knocking, but the courage to take your hand off the handle? To say, "Lord, if you are in this no, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to hurt myself trying to enter where you are not sending me. Teach me how to walk away from what I was never meant to force." Because the door you would have forced open might have closed you into a chapter you would have spent years trying to escape. And somewhere quietly, patiently, there is another door, one that will not demand you become less to fit inside, one that will open not because you break yourself against it, but because God, in the right time, will turn the key himself. There is a question that has followed you for a long time. What would my life look like if that door had opened? You've asked it in the quiet, driving alone, showering, lying in bed at night. You let your mind build alternate timelines. If that relationship had worked, if that job had come through, if that move had been approved, if that dream had unfolded exactly how you imagined. In those imagined futures, everything looks perfect. You are happy, you are fulfilled, you finally belong, you finally feel enough. But your imagination rarely adds the cost. It doesn't show the nights where you would have cried in secret. It doesn't show the arguments behind closed doors. It doesn't show the way you would have gradually adjusted your values just to keep the peace. It doesn't show the emptiness you would have felt in a life that looked impressive on the outside but felt hollow on the inside. You saw the highlight reel. Heaven saw the whole movie. You imagined that relationship as a constant source of comfort. Heaven saw the day you would sit at the edge of your own bed, feeling more alone next to them than you ever did by yourself. The apology you would never receive, the promises that would stay broken, the emotional bruises you would have learned to hide from everyone. You imagined that job as stability and purpose. Heaven saw your soul under fluorescent lights at midnight, exhausted, burnt out, scrolling through emails with tears in your eyes, whispering, "Is this what I traded my peace for?" The conversations that would have coaxed you to cut corners. The pressure to be who you are not, day after day after day. You imagined that move as a fresh start. Heaven saw the loneliness, the spiritual coldness of that environment, the slow drifting of your heart away from God as you tried to adapt to a place that never knew how to nourish your spirit. You never got to see those scenes. You only got to feel the ache of the door not opening, so you blamed yourself. You blamed your timing. You blamed your lack of connections, your resume, your personality. But the truth is, there are versions of your life that God has already vetoed out of love. He looked at the road ahead and said, Not that one. Not for you. Not for who I am forming you to be. You don't always realize that your prayers and His protection are connected. You once prayed, God, don't let me move away from you. Don't let me become someone I'm not. Don't let success take me from your presence. Don't let relationships destroy my identity. Protect my heart, even from myself. You meant it. He believed you. So when you stood in front of that door, begging for a life that would have required you to forget those very prayers, He answered them instead of your request. You asked Him to keep you close. He did, by keeping some things far. You don't see what would have happened to your relationship with Him if everything you wanted had been handed to you when you wanted it. But He does. He saw the version of you that woke up too busy to pray, too tired to care, too entertained to feel conviction. He saw the version of you that depended on people more than His presence, that looked successful but internally crumbled. And He chose for you a different story. Not an easier one, not a pain-free one, but a safer one for your soul. You have already tasted some of this in small ways. You've heard stories. You've watched from a distance. You've seen the behind the scenes of people who got exactly what they were chasing and lost themselves in the process. You've thought, if that door had opened for me, I could have been standing right where they are now, smiling on the outside, dying inside. That realization is not about judging them. It is about recognizing the mercy over your own path. Mercy does not always feel like mercy in real time. Sometimes it feels like disappointment, delay, humiliation, silence. Only later, when the dust settles and new chapters begin to unfold, do you start to see hints of what you were spared from. A situation that looked glamorous in your fantasies, you now see in reality, and something inside you whispers, "Thank you, God, for not letting me go there." A relationship that once looked like your only chance at love has now revealed who that person truly is, and you whisper, "Thank you, that I am not the one trying to survive that." A position you begged God for has turned others into shells of themselves, and you say, "Thank you that I am not bound to that room, to that pressure, to that compromise." You still don't know the full story of what you were saved from. You won't, not on this side of eternity. But you have seen enough to know this: God's no has never been careless. It has always been aimed at futures where you would have slowly lost the most precious parts of who you are. The tenderness in you, the sensitivity to His voice, the ability to feel conviction, the capacity to love without turning bitter. So when that door stayed closed, He was not just blocking an opportunity, He was guarding your identity. You think about the future you never saw, the one behind that door, and part of you still wonders, but what if there were good things there too? Maybe there were. Maybe there were moments of joy, memories, experiences that would have made you smile. But heaven weighed the whole story. Not just the good moments, but the long-term effects. And in that weighing, God decided that your heart, your calling, and your eternity were worth more than a temporary high. You may still feel the sting. You may still grieve what you thought your life would be. That's okay. But as you grieve, He is gently inviting you to see something. You are not living Plan B. You are living the version of your life that survived His wisdom. A life where certain doors stayed shut, not because you were unworthy of entering, but because you were too loved to be left inside. Some of the hardest doors didn't look like wood or metal. They looked like people, not companies, not systems, not institutions, faces, voices, hands you once held, names that used to light up your phone. You didn't just lose an opportunity, you lost a person you had woven into your idea of forever. You remember the shift. At first, everything felt open. Open conversations, open hearts, open plans for the future. They said, "We'll always be here." They said, "You're my person." They said, "Nothing will change." You believed them, not because you were foolish, but because you loved sincerely. Then, slowly, the door that once swung wide began to close. Messages took longer to be answered. Calls became shorter. Excuses became more frequent. You felt the distance before you could define it. Your spirit noticed the draft. They changed, you said. Or maybe you changed, or maybe both. What you know is this: whoever they were for you in one season, they were no longer that in the next. And that terrified you. You felt it when the energy in the room shifted, when their eyes no longer rested on you the same way, when laughter felt forced, when you walked away from time with them feeling smaller, more insecure, more confused. You tried to fix it, you tried to talk, you tried to go back to how it was, but something invisible had moved. From your side, it looked like abandonment. From heaven's side, it was a door being gently, firmly closed. Not because that person was pure evil, not because they were a villain, but because their role in your story had reached its limit. There are people who are beautiful for a chapter but dangerous for the whole book. You could not see that. You only saw the good memories, the inside jokes, the nights you cried together, the way they showed up when others didn't. You held all of that in your hands and said, God, why would you let this go? Why would you let someone who meant so much become a stranger? Heaven saw something else. The parts of you that vanished when you were with them. The red flags you swallowed just to keep from rocking the boat. The little ways you betrayed your own values so they would not leave. You saw comfort. Heaven saw compromise. You saw the version of them that existed in your best moments. Heaven saw the version of them that would show up in your worst. So God did something you did not recognize as love. He allowed misalignment to surface. He let their true priorities become clearer. He let patterns repeat enough times that you could no longer deny them. He allowed words to be spoken that you could not unhear, actions to be taken that you could not unsee. You begged him to fix it, to glue everything back together, to restore the connection exactly how it was before. But sometimes restoration doesn't look like reunion. Sometimes restoration looks like release. He wasn't just protecting you from what they could do to you. He was also protecting you from what you were willing to do to yourself to keep them. The version of you that accepted crumbs. The version of you that apologized for having needs. The version of you that kept shrinking, hoping they would finally notice how small you had become, trying to fit inside their comfort. Heaven loved you too much to let that version of you define your entire life. So the door closed, not all at once, but over time. At first, you blamed yourself. If I had been different, they would have stayed. If I had been more patient, more fun, more secure, this wouldn't have ended. You replayed every moment, searching for the one thing you could fix to turn the handle back. But beneath all the noise, beneath all the self-accusation, your spirit knew, this is not the environment where I can grow. You felt it in your body. You felt it in your prayers. You felt it in the way your peace disappeared whenever you thought about going back at any cost. You called it heartbreak. Heaven called it intervention. Because in the loneliness that followed, something sacred happened. You started to hear yourself again. Not the echo of someone else's preferences. Not the sound of their disappointment, your own voice. You remembered desires you had buried, convictions you had softened, lines you had erased to keep them comfortable. You realized how many times you had stood in front of that human door, begging to be let back in, while God stood behind you saying, turn around. I know this feels like loss, but I am pulling you out of a place where your worth was constantly up for negotiation. There is a special kind of grief reserved for people-shaped doors that close. God does not treat that grief lightly. He is not asking you to pretend it doesn't hurt. He is not saying, just move on. They were never meant for you. He sits with you in the ache. He honors the love you gave. He sees the nights you miss, not just the person, but the version of yourself that existed when they were near. And still, he does not reopen the door. Not because he enjoys your pain, but because he knows what waits on the other side. A version of your life where you keep abandoning yourself to avoid being abandoned. So when you look back at the people who left, the ones who wouldn't or couldn't stay, you are not required to hate them to recognize this truth. Some of them were a door God mercifully closed to protect your heart, to preserve your calling, to save you from a love story that would have slowly taught you to live without love for yourself and without awareness of him. One day, as healing deepens, you will be able to say, without bitterness and without denial, "Thank you, Lord, for every person who walked away because staying would have broken me more. Thank you for turning what I saw as rejection into a guarded exit from a room I was never meant to die in." Some doors never even got the chance to close in your face. They were never opened to you at all. You know the feeling. You heard about the meeting after it happened. You saw the photos of the gathering you weren't invited to. You watched circles form, friend groups, ministry teams, work networks, and your name was not on the list. You tried to be okay with it. You told yourself, "I don't need them." You shrugged it off, made jokes, pretended it didn't sting, but deep inside, it did. You wondered, why do I always seem to be on the outside? What is so wrong with me that I don't get picked? Why am I always the one watching doors open for others but never for me? From your side, it looked like being overlooked. From heaven's side, it was being shielded. You only saw the stage. Heaven saw the backstage. You saw the platform, the recognition, the applause, the apparent unity. Heaven saw the conversations after the lights went off, the gossip, the compromise, the subtle pride, the pressure to perform, to keep up, to never show weakness. You saw an inner circle. Heaven saw a closed system that would have quietly reshaped you into someone you were never meant to be. You told yourself, if I could just get in there, I'd finally be seen, I'd finally be stable, I'd finally be able to bless others the way I dream of. But God knew that in those rooms, your worth would be measured by metrics that had nothing to do with His heart. How fast you grow, how loudly you shine, how well you fit an image that impresses people but drains your soul. So invitations never came, conversations didn't extend, connections didn't click the way you hoped. You felt invisible. Heaven called you hidden, not hidden as in buried, hidden as in guarded, set aside, covered while the climate in those rooms grew more toxic than you could have handled. There is a kind of success that would have seduced you. You would have loved the attention. You would have thrived on the affirmation. You would have told yourself, this must be God, look how doors are opening. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, you would have adjusted your convictions to keep your seat at the table, laughing at things that once grieved you, staying silent when you knew you should speak, smoothing over what God was confronting in your heart just to avoid losing your place. Heaven saw this before you did. So instead of opening every door you pounded on, God allowed some of them to simply never respond. You didn't get the role. Your name wasn't recommended. Your application was somehow lost in the shuffle. The person who could have opened that door for you just never followed through. You interpreted it as a flaw in you. He interpreted it as a fence around you, not a fence of punishment, a fence of protection, because you are not just anybody. You have a calling that reaches beyond numbers and impressions. You carry wounds that could have been easily manipulated in the wrong hands. You have a heart that doesn't do well in places where masks are mandatory and depth is rare. So when you cried, "Lord, why not me?" He was answering a bigger prayer. "Lord, don't let me drift away from you." You once asked Him, "Keep me from environments that will kill my hunger for you. Don't let me become spiritually numb. Don't let my heart grow cold." You expected that prayer to be answered through powerful encounters, through visible fire, through moments that made you feel alive. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is answered like this. You don't get the invite. You see the group photo without you in it. You see others bonding around things you know would have compromised your soul, and you feel the sting of distance. You think you are missing out. Heaven knows you are being spared. You may not understand it now. You may not see everything God saw when He kept certain doors out of your reach. But imagine this, a version of your life where you got into every room you wanted and slowly became someone you don't even recognize. Someone who knows how to say the right words but no longer feels anything deep. Someone who knows how to perform spirituality but no longer hears the whisper of God. Someone who is surrounded by people yet slowly losing themselves. If he had to choose between that version of you and the you who feels left out but still hears him, he will choose your soul every time. That is why some doors never appeared. That is why some circles never opened. That is why some opportunities never even made it to your inbox. Not because you were unqualified, but because you were too precious to be thrown into atmospheres that would have numbed your spirit. You still feel the ache. He doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't say, stop wanting to belong. He simply says, let me decide where you belong. Let me choose which tables your heart can handle. Let me close the rooms you think you need, so I can open the ones where you will actually live. There comes a point in your journey where you begin to realize something important. You don't have to hate every door that God closes. For a long time, you believed that in order to heal, you had to rewrite the story completely. They weren't that great. That job was trash anyway. That dream was foolish. I never really wanted that. You tried to protect your heart by pretending it was all meaningless, but you did want it. You cared. You loved. You invested parts of yourself into that possibility. To deny that is to deny your own heart. God is not asking you to erase your desires to prove that you trust him. He is teaching you how to hold desire in one hand and surrender in the other. You can say, I really wanted this, and still say, and I trust you with this no. You can grieve the door without calling it evil. You can miss what might have been without making it your idol. Because now you are beginning to understand that God's protection does not always mean the door was monstrous. Sometimes it simply means it wasn't meant for you, not because you are lesser, but because you are different. Different story, different assignment, different battles your heart is shaped to fight, different roads your feet are meant to walk. There are people for whom that relationship worked, people who thrive in that job, souls who are genuinely called into rooms that would drain you. You don't have to demonize their doors to honor your own. You can bless others in their path while accepting that yours will look different. This is part of maturity. When you stop praying, God, give me what they have, and start praying, God, give me what you wrote for me. When you stop saying, if this door doesn't open, I'm nothing, and start saying, if this door doesn't open, then it was never part of my something. You begin to recognize the pattern. Doors that require you to abandon your convictions are not doors from him. Doors that demand you constantly shrink just to fit inside are not doors from him. Doors that only open if you silence your discernment and betray every warning sign are not doors from him. So now, when you stand in front of something new, you don't just ask, is this big? Is this impressive? Does this prove I'm not behind? You ask, can I be myself here? Can I honor God here? Does my peace deepen here, or does it evaporate the closer I step? That question changes everything, because suddenly you realize the point was never just to have doors open. It was to walk through the right ones with the right heart. You think back to the places you once begged to enter. What if you had forced your way in? What if every no had turned into a yes, simply because you demanded it enough? You might have had the life you imagined, but not the life you were made for, a life full of constant proving, a life where rest feels like failure, a life where your worth is tied to how many doors remain open at once. That is not freedom. That is slavery with better lighting. God is not trying to train you into becoming the most powerful door opener. He is training you to become someone who recognizes his fingerprints on the path ahead. Someone who says, I won't just chase what glows. I will follow what carries your presence. So when another door closes now, it still stings. You still feel the ache. You still have questions. But underneath the sting, there is something new, a quiet, growing trust. The awareness that you have survived other closed doors before. The memory that last time you eventually saw the mercy in it. The understanding that if he is saying no here, he is not pushing you into emptiness. He is pushing you deeper into himself. You are learning to walk away without cursing what you leave behind. You can look at a closed door and say, I loved what I thought this would be. I'm sad it isn't. But I refuse to stand here forever blaming myself, blaming them, or blaming you. You can turn, even with tears in your eyes, and say, Lord, I will not worship this door. I will not build my identity around its lock. If you kept it closed, then somewhere ahead there is something I cannot see yet, but you have already prepared. And as you walk away, you are not walking into a void. You are walking with someone who knows every hallway, every room, every future. The same hand that kept you from entering what would have damaged you is the hand that now leads you forward. And every step you take away from what you were never meant to force is a step closer to the life you were actually saved for. There is something that happens after enough closed doors. At first, all you can see is what didn't work. The relationship that never became. The job that never called. The move that never happened. The opportunity that slipped through your fingers. Your eyes stay glued to the place where it hurt. You walk through your days with that door etched in your memory, convinced that everything good was locked behind it. But slowly, almost quietly, something begins to change. Life doesn't freeze just because one door stayed shut. Time moves. Days pass. People enter your life that you never would have met if that old door had opened. A different conversation, a different room, a different path that seemed small and unimpressive at first. It didn't glow like the door you wanted. It didn't match the dreams you had pinned to your wall. It was ordinary, almost invisible. An unexpected friendship, a small opportunity, a quiet yes that didn't come with applause. You said yes anyway. You walked into something that didn't look like destiny, just like the next thing. And then, piece by piece, you began to notice something. There was peace here, not the adrenaline rush of a fantasy, but a steady calm. The kind of calm that lets your shoulders drop. The kind of atmosphere where your soul doesn't have to whisper, please don't break this, every time you breathe. You talked differently in these new spaces. You laughed without fear of being mocked. You spoke without rehearsing every word in your head. You prayed, and instead of feeling blocked or numb, you sensed a softness, a sense that God was not just watching from a distance, but walking with you. You started to realize the proof of a God-given door is not just that it opens, but that you are able to remain yourself on the other side. You can honor Him here. You can rest here. You can grow here without constantly betraying who you are. You look around and think, I never would have chosen this path on my own. This wasn't my first plan. This wasn't my dream door. And yet, there is a strange, undeniable rightness about it. Not perfect circumstances, but a perfect presence that holds you through them. People show up who actually see you without asking you to erase yourself. Work comes that stretches you in healthy ways instead of grinding you into dust. Opportunities appear that require courage, yes, but not self-destruction. You begin to see that the closed door you mourned for so long was not the only door on your hallway. It was just the one you had fixated on. God had other doors lined up along your path, less shiny, less obvious, but more aligned with who He made you to be. You realize that if He had given you what you begged for, you would have never even looked in this direction. Your eyes would have stayed locked on that one dream. Your heart would have clung to that one plan. You would have missed these quieter gifts that came disguised as interruptions, inconveniences, and second choices. You see it now in the people you have around you, in the peace you feel when you wake up even on hard days, in the way your relationship with God is more honest, more raw, more real than it was when you were just chasing open doors. This does not mean you will never desire again. It does not mean you will never dream big or stretch towards something new. But now you dream differently. You no longer say, God, give me this door, or I have nothing. You say, God, if this is from you, open it. And if it is not, give me eyes to see the better thing that I can't see yet. You no longer define your life by entrances and exclusions. You define it by presence. Are you in this with me? Can I find you here? Is my soul alive here, or is it quietly dying while everything looks successful on the surface? Those questions become your compass, and as you walk, you start noticing doors you would have previously ignored, simple moments that become holy ground, small beginnings that carry eternal weight, relationships that don't look grand on social media, but hold you up when no one else sees your tears. You begin to thank God, not only for the doors that open, but for the ones that don't. Because now you understand, if every door had opened, you would have walked past the very paths where God planned to meet you. So you look at your life now, not perfect, not without wounds, but undeniably preserved. You can say, I don't understand every no. I still feel the sting of some that closed. But I can see, even just a little, that there are doors I'm walking through today that are gentler on my heart, truer to my calling, and safer for my soul than anything I would have chosen for myself. And if it took 1,000 closed doors to lead me here, then maybe I was never being abandoned. Maybe I was being guided all along. There are still doors in your story that hurt when you think about them. You've moved forward, you've learned, you've grown, you've walked through new doors, you've tasted new peace, and yet there are moments when a smell, a song, a place, a memory takes you back to a hallway you thought you were done with. Suddenly, you're there again, in front of that door, hand on the handle, heart full of hope. You remember the text you never got, the message that ended it, the moment the email came, the final conversation, the day you realized it's really over, this is really closed. The ache comes back, not as sharp as before, but still present. You wonder, am I really healed if it still hurts sometimes, if I still think about what could have been, if I still feel sad when I imagine that life I never lived? From heaven's side, the answer is gentler than you expect. Healing doesn't always mean you never feel anything again. Healing means you can feel without being chained. You can remember without being dragged back. You can acknowledge the pain without letting it define your worth. There was a time when thinking about that door sent you into a spiral. You questioned everything. You attacked yourself. You attacked God in your mind, even if you were afraid to say it out loud. Why did you let me hope? Why did you let me love? Why did you let me get so close if you knew it would end like this? In those days, your grief and your identity were tangled together. Now, slowly, God is separating them. You are learning to say, yes, that hurt me, without adding, and it means I'm unworthy. You are learning to say, yes, I wanted that, without adding, and because I didn't get it, my life is a failure. You're learning to let the wound tell its truth, without letting it write your future. This is part of the healing process that no one applauds. The quiet work of forgiving yourself for what you didn't know. You didn't know what that door really held. You didn't know what it would have cost you. You didn't know how deep God's no was protecting you. You saw a good thing. You reached for it. That is what hearts do. You are not foolish for having hoped. You are not naive for having loved. You are not pathetic for having wanted to belong. God is not mocking you for the way you wanted that door. He is honoring the sincerity of your heart and redirecting it toward places where your love can live instead of be drained. There is another layer of healing too. It's not just about the door. It's about what you said to yourself when it closed. I must not be enough. I'm always the one left behind. God doesn't trust me with good things. I must have done something unforgivable. Those sentences are not neutral. They dug trenches in your mind. They built pathways that your thoughts still try to run down whenever something doesn't go your way. So God in His mercy is not only healing you from the loss of the door, He is healing you from the lies that tried to attach themselves to it. He whispers into those trenches, I did not close this because you are unworthy. I did not close this because I enjoy watching you hurt. I closed this because I heard prayers you've forgotten you prayed. I want to belong to you. I want to be who you created me to be. Don't let me destroy myself. He is answering you now with a love that feels like contradiction, saying no to what you begged for, saying yes to who you really are. You may think that the version of you that stood at that door was a mistake. Heaven sees that version of you as a necessary chapter, because out of that season came a deeper discernment, a deeper humility, a deeper ability to recognize what your soul can and cannot carry. Now, when new doors appear, you don't just ask, "Do I want this?" You ask, "Does this want the real me? Can I live here as I truly am, with God, with my convictions, with my tenderness intact?" That question was born out of pain. God is turning it into wisdom. So when the memory comes, you don't have to push it away in shame. You can sit with it and say, "That door mattered to me. I loved what I thought was on the other side. But I will no longer use this as proof that I am unwanted. If God closed it, it is because He is keeping promises I don't even remember making. Promises to protect my heart, promises to guard my faith, promises to lead me toward a life that doesn't just look blessed but truly is. Your healing is not you pretending you never wanted it. Your healing is you learning to thank God, even with tears in your eyes. Not because the loss was good, but because His hand has been good to you through every loss. The day will come when you look back at that hallway, at that door, and instead of saying, "That's where everything ended," you will say, "That's where I started learning to trust that my Father's no is still part of His love." One day, you will look back from farther down this road and see it more clearly than you do now. You will remember the hallway. You will remember the begging, the bargaining, the sleepless nights. You will remember how sure you were that if this door opened, everything in you would finally exhale. And then, from the distance of time, you will trace the line of your life from that closed door to where you stand. You will see the people you met because you didn't walk through that one place. You will see the growth that came out of the emptiness you thought would kill you. You will see the small, almost hidden doors that opened along the way, doors you never would have noticed if the big one had swung wide. You will see how your heart did not stay shattered, how God quietly picked up every piece and, instead of gluing them back exactly how they were, He reshaped them, more tender, more discerning, more grounded in Him than in any title, relationship, or dream. You will see how that no forced you to ask deeper questions than, "How do I get what I want?" You started asking, "Who am I without this? Who is God to me when I don't get my way? What kind of life do I want to live if every external door stays shut, but His presence remains?" Those questions have been reordering your foundations. You no longer just want any open door. You want God in the door. You no longer just want to be chosen by people. You want to live like someone who was already chosen before the foundation of the world. You no longer just want a plan that works. You want a path that keeps your soul alive. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you are becoming someone new. Someone who can hear no and not collapse. Someone who can grieve and still believe. Someone who can feel disappointed and still say, "Father, I don't understand, but I know your heart is not against me." You are learning that His no is never the end of the story, because right after no, He keeps walking with you into the next day, into the next conversation, into the next small obedience that doesn't feel like destiny, but is. The truth is, you won't fully know in this life how many disasters that no prevented. You won't have a list of every heartbreak you were spared, every compromise you never had to make, every sleepless night you never had to endure. Heaven keeps those records. What you do have is this quiet knowing growing in your spirit. I am still here. I am still breathing. I am still capable of love, of trust, of hope. And if I'm still here, it is not because every door opened. It is because the right doors closed. The closed door you cursed has been slowly revealed as a shield you never asked for, but desperately needed. The no that felt like punishment is beginning to sound in hindsight like mercy. And the God you once accused of withholding good things from you is being revealed as the God who refused to decorate your destruction and call it blessing. So now, standing where you are today, you have a choice. You can live the rest of your life haunted by the doors that never opened, or you can let this revelation sink deep into your bones. If God kept it closed, He is not done with me. He is guarding something in me. He is guiding me somewhere better, even if I cannot see the map yet. You can carry this with you into your next decision. The next time a door does not move, instead of only asking, "What's wrong with me?" you can ask, "Lord, what are you protecting here? What are you preparing instead? Where are you in this no?" And even if the answer does not come immediately, you will know this: He is not far from the hallway. He is standing right beside you in it. His hand is still on your shoulder. His eyes still see your future. His love for you has never hinged on a single door. The door you thought would save your life did not open, because the way He truly saved your life was by keeping it closed. If something in this resonates with your story, if you can point to at least one door that stayed shut and later proved to be a hidden mercy, let that awareness stay with you. Let it soften your heart toward God instead of harden it. Let it shape the way you interpret your next disappointment. And if you need to keep walking in this kind of atmosphere, where your pain is taken seriously, where your story is seen from heaven's side, where closed doors are reinterpreted through the lens of God's protection, you are welcome to stay. Stay close to this voice. Stay close to this kind of reminder. Stay close to divine frequency, because your journey is not finished. There are doors ahead you don't even know exist yet. Some will open, some will not. But through every yes and every no, there will be one who never closes himself to you. And when you feel that familiar ache again, standing in another hallway, you will be able to whisper, "Lord, I trust the hand that closes what I cannot keep and opens what I could never deserve. Thank you for every door that saved my life by staying closed."